Welcome to the Energy Medicine and Healing Summit, where you'll discover how to take your health into your own hands from today's top energy medicine experts and healers. Share this powerful event with your friends and family, and join in our conversation on Facebook at The Shift Network. And now your host, Don D. Dolan.
Hello, friends. Welcome to our session with Marie Manuchehri. Marie is a healer, a speaker, an author, and she has an awesome radio show called Where Energy and Medicine Meet. Isn't that appropriate for this summit? She has 2 books out with Sounds True. Welcome, Marie. Hello.
Hello, Dante. Thank you so much for having me on your glorious summit.
Well, we are so happy that you are here, and we're going to talk about the question of what if. This session is called The Power of What If, and you work with energy. How do we shift energy with that question, what if?
You know, since I was a young child, I've always been fascinated with manifesting and creating whatever we want in our lives. And so, like most people, I've practiced a lot of affirmations over the decades. And I would say that I haven't been as successful as I would like to be with affirmations. They seem, at least from my consciousness, they seem to be kind of slow moving. And sometimes I've looked at some of my dear friends who are also using affirmations, and they would have little sticky notes painted, all over their home, on their computers, their phones. And I was always surprised by how long it took for these affirmations to really sink into the neurological transmitters of the human mind. And I found it very curious. And so I started to watch people's energy and spend some time communicating with their ego, which in my mind, the ego is truly drenched in fear. I think it's normal for us to believe that we're handsome, beautiful, intelligent, fortunate, incredible souls. I don't think that feeling or thinking that way about ourselves has anything to do with the ego. I think the ego, again, is completely drenched in fear. And what I noticed about the ego is that it's comfortable with curiosity. So I don't think the ego truly appreciates affirmations. And in fact, if we don't have a belief system to support an affirmation, I think repeating them for most people over and over again is going to be potentially a slow and challenging process because of the ego. It will just kick an affirmation out of your brain if you don't have a belief system to support it, which is the main reason why we're repeating affirmations sometimes for years, is because we're trying to create a belief system that allows us to manifest and shift and change our energy to have a different reality. So in my discovery of recognizing that the ego isn't afraid of curiosity, I began to work with my clients and myself, because I always think of myself as a guinea pig. Everything I've written about or taught, I've definitely practiced it myself and integrated into my life as much as possible. So I began to work with my clients with what if questions, because that encompasses curiosity. I also noticed, which I thought was interesting, that most people are asking themselves questions all day long, but they tend to be negative. Like, what if this doesn't work out? What if I don't get home in time? What if I forgot to pay a bill? What if my kid doesn't graduate from college? What if I get sick? There's all these kind of constant negative what if questions that we're asking. Humans are, many of them unconsciously, all the time. And our ego does not kick those out of our brain. So in this fun, way that I began to work with myself and then ultimately my clients, we worked on saying positive what if questions. What if everything is working out for me? What if I'm on the right track? What if I have clear and beautiful resources in all of my accounts? What if I'm manifesting and creating in perfect ways for myself? And I noticed as I worked with this personally and with clients, their energy began to shift. So curious questions that are positive, but also somewhat general. I noticed that the mind became too detailed in the picture that maybe the question might create, that again, the ego might get a little bit revved up and create some negative story potentially. But if we can create positive what if questions that are general, like what if everything is working out in my life? What if I'm on the right track? What if only amazing things manifest into my world? the ego gets excited about the curiosity, and human beings immediately begin to calibrate the subatomic particles in their body, because as you know, everything in the universe is made out of energy, including our liver, all of our cells, our blood, our hair, our thoughts. Everything is subatomic particles. That we begin to calibrate our vibration, our human frequency, to the answers. We start attracting the answers. We start elevating our particle mass to the answers, and everything that we would want to have in our life actually vibrates in high energy. So when we are reciting, either out loud or silently, positive, creative, what if questions, we are literally vibrating our whole selves to a positive resolution.
Thank you for sharing those great discoveries with us. How did you discover your ability to heal and to help others to heal?
Mhm. Thank you for asking the question. I love everything about healing. I first of all believe that everyone heals themselves, and I'm a facilitator. But how it occurred for me is I was actually an oncology nurse working in a Seattle area hospital when I began to see and hear and feel my patients' organs. They literally were talking to me. And initially, when it first started, luckily, because I'd meditated for years and I'd studied spirituality for years, I wasn't frightened or worried that maybe I had a brain tumor, because believe me, when you start to have experiences that are multisensory, sometimes you do think, oh my gosh, maybe I have a brain tumor, because people can hallucinate when things go awry in their brain. But fortunately for me, eventually I told a nurse supervisor about my experience, and I thought for sure she might order a psych eval and suspend me because every single day there was more mounting multisensory experiences. I began to see my patients' history that was related to their organs that were having challenges in healing on our floor. And so I was very surprised to hear something about their childhood or their marriage or their work environment. And I knew that it had a lot to do with repressed emotions that they were holding in their body. So as I was explaining this to my nurse supervisor, she actually told me that she thought I was seeing energy, and she mentioned the term chakra, and she talked about hands-on healing, and she encouraged me to start laying my hands on our patients. So that's how it all started, and I trained myself in the hospital laying my hands on hundreds of patients over about a year and a half timetable before people started to just naturally show up at my doorstep. And then I created a practice. When people started to come to the house, I just created a practice.
Well, how terrific that you had a person who worked with you that was so supportive of energy and who didn't scare you when you brought this to her. That's great. So you are a healer, you're a well-known healer, and you're also a medium. And I'd like you to just briefly say what a medium is in case people are confused between mediums and psychics, and just clear that up. And then tell us, how does being a medium help heal people's wounds? How can that help people heal emotionally or physically?
You know, that is such a great question. I didn't start out to be, an energy worker, let alone a medium. I really wanted to be normal because my family is so not normal. My family of origin is very aware and spiritual. And I think that's why I married an engineer and went to nursing school. But as it turns out, I'm more abnormal than anyone in our family. Or I like to say I'm the most normal. I think it's normal to be multisensory. What I found so surprising when it comes to speaking to people who have crossed over, and that's what a medium does. A medium communicates between the veil. So people on the other side who want to talk to a loved one that's in the presence of a medium will actually either walk through they'll leave the fifth dimension, which is the other side, and they'll walk through the fourth dimension and sit or stand next to the medium or the medium's energy. Because energy, there's no time or space restrictions, right? In fact, time is a man-made experience. It doesn't really exist. The medium may feel like, at least this is how I feel, that I'm standing on the fourth layer of the auric field or the fourth dimension of the world, communicating to people who have passed over. The first experience I had was actually in the hospital, and I had already been laying hands on many people for about a year's time. And before I would feel drawn to a patient, I would always ask the patient's nurse, because most days I was the charge nurse. I would ask that patient's nurse, would you be okay if I go in there and do my thing with your patient? And everyone always said yes. Healing touch is a nurse created modality. I don't practice healing touch myself, but it's common in medical circles, the healing touch, a form of hands-on healing. And so one day I'm actually walking up and down the hallways, and I noticed this really interesting kind of blue orb, if you will, kind of floating close to the ceiling. And that was just kind of a normal thing that I would experience, something unique and different every day. So I wasn't surprised by it. But all of a sudden I saw a face come out of what looked like an orb, and it was a woman probably in her 70s. And she immediately communicated with me. Mediums and people on the other side, they communicate through multiple mental telepathic, communication. So you don't have to open your mouth, you just open your minds and you communicate through your minds. And she told me that her son was on the floor I was working on, and she wanted me to go in and talk to him. It was a very busy unit, and I had no idea where he was. And I was also very busy that day. So I told her, I'm sorry, I don't have time. And I walked away, which I know sounds really mean, but when you're in the physical realm and you're doing a job like nursing, there's like all these things you have to do to keep your patients moving along, and healing. So every time I would walk this part of the floor of that floor of the hospital, she would talk to me and I would ignore her. I know, again, that sounds terrible. I didn't know exactly who she was for sure. I just assumed based on our conversation that she was the mother of a patient. She basically said that. And towards the end of my shift, I walked one more passage on that floor and I saw her again. And all of a sudden, a door to a patient's room started to glow. And in my mind, it started to glow. And so I knew, oh, this is where her son is. So of course I asked his nurse, I went, if I could spend time with him. I went into the room and introduced myself. And there was a woman sitting, a young woman. I thought maybe it was his wife. It was a young man in a bed. And there was a woman sitting next to him. And I asked him if his mother had passed. And he said, yes. And then he introduced me to his sister who was sitting next to him, the woman. And I asked if she was strong and had a strong personality and could kind of yell at people. Because honestly, I felt like she was yelling at me all day long, quite frankly. And both this gentleman and his sister started laughing. And they said, yes, she had a very strong personality. She usually got what she wanted. And I said, okay, well, I'm in your room now. I laid hands on him. And in that moment, I knew why she wanted me to come into the room. He had a terminal illness and he was worried, which I didn't know he had a terminal illness, but she told me with my hands on him that he was worried that that he wasn't going to be able to go home again, that this was his last, few days or weeks. And she knew it wasn't. And she knew he had much more time, and she wanted me to tell him. So I told him what his mother had said, that he had more time. He was going to go home and be able to spend time with his family and his friends. And he had not told his sister that he was worried about it. So they got to have a lovely conversation about it. And she said that she was going to work on helping him to learn to live more fully with the time that he had. It was that first experience that let me know how much the people on the other side really love us and care about us and work in every way possible that they can to deliver information that no one else around us really knows what we're going through. And that's why I think communicating with the other dimensions is really helpful for people who have health challenges or even emotional challenges or just day-to-day issues that their loved ones actually know everything about. And to answer the other question that you had, I believe that being a medium or intuitive, it's all psychic energy. To be psychic means that you can look through multiple dimensions or hear through multiple dimensions or feel through multiple dimensions. And you can translate the information accurately that makes sense for us in the physical reality. So some people prefer the word intuitive, but to be a medium or an intuitive, you must be psychic. You have to look you have this natural ability or maybe somewhat trained ability where you're able to see, hear, and feel what most human beings at this particular time in our consciousness don't.
Marie, you're talking about seeing energy. You have also said that you hear energy. Can you describe what you see and what you hear? Maybe even with people who are well and people who are challenged with a health disposition.
When it comes to hearing and seeing energy, it's like a collage, a layering of information from a vision to something auditory to a clairsentient. So people who can see are clairvoyant, people who can hear beyond the physical realm are clairaudient, and then people who feel are clairsentient. The feeling is actually the most important part of all the clairs. It's lovely to be clairvoyant. It's lovely to be clairaudient. But if you can't feel what the image is trying to share with you, or if you can't feel what the audio is trying to share with you, then sometimes it can feel like you're getting information, but you don't know why. So when I work with a client, I prefer to go in cold. So I don't know anything about a client when they make an appointment with me. I don't know why they're having a session. I don't even know their name until moments before they come to the door, or we do Skype or Zoom or whatever device we're using if it's long distance. When I do a distance session, I actually draw out the person's energy about 5 to 10 minutes before we go live. If someone's coming to my house, I'll start to get information as they're driving here. It'll just be natural, spontaneous, just an absorption of information. But distance, I just kind of want to get a hit on why I think they're calling me, which could be very different. People may think they have a reason why they're connecting with me. I may have my own idea of why they're connecting with me, although I do always answer their questions and their concerns from their perspective. So I literally draw out their auric field and their chakras, and I have a formula that lets me know if it's a health issue or not. So there's a knowingness that occurs when you have a collage of information. You're having visions, auditory experiences, and the clairsentient, these feelings that are coming over you. And so it's through this collage that you get, at least in my opinion, in my experience, very fast and typically accurate information. At the same time that I'm reading someone's energy, I also love to clean energy. I love to move particles. Anyone who is intuitive or psychic is moving energy. They have to be. In order to read it, you've got to move it over. It's kind of like you've got to turn the page to read the next page. So I love to balance energy and subatomic particles. So that's a big part of my job. I do part of that through sound. I actually make toning sounds because sound creates a frequency. So I lay hands on the person and or on the images that I've drawn of them if they're in distance, and I make a sound to shift the frequency. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but that is part of an answer, I think.
Yes, that answered my question. Thank you. Thank you for describing that. It gives a great picture for all of our viewers to see. Your book is Intuitive Self-Healing, one of your books. If a person is downtrodden or ill or depressed, self-healing can feel impossible and like the biggest chore in the world. So how does someone begin? Can you tell us or even take us through some beginning exercises to start to heal?
Yeah, that's a great question. When we look at the human chakra system, because we are in human form, and I think that's really important to stay present in the fact that we're in a body, whatever consciousness from our higher self or our soul that we determine was necessary for this particular incarnation, it's here resting in the form that we chose in this lifetime. When we look at the aura, which of course is this huge body of energy that surrounds the form that we chose to bring a portion of our soul in to experience, it's divided into 7 layers for the human reality. And the very first layer that's the closest to the human body is literally a hologram. And in this hologram, it's about 6 inches in width, and it circles you like an eggshell. And in the hologram is all of your anatomy and your physiology in complete and total health. So if someone has a problem with their reproductive organs. In the hologram, there's nothing wrong with their reproductive organs. If they've broken a bone, in the hologram, no bone has ever been broken. The cholesterol levels are normal. Hemoglobin is normal. Everything is perfect in the hologram. What we want is we want the hologram to communicate to the person's anatomy and physiology. So the hologram, because it's healthy, it wants to remind the human body what health looks like. And in order for that to happen, which is a normal process, individuals need to be grounded. They need to be in their body. And if they're grounded, then there's these beautiful secondary chakras that are on the bottoms of each one of our feet. Those chakras will start to pull up earth energy into the physical form and will begin to send energy to the hologram. And then the hologram will teach an organ that might be having a challenge, or some physiological part of our body that's having a challenge, what health looks like. And so it will begin to mirror what the hologram is teaching it. So to be present and in the body is really important. There's a quick exercise. This exercise will help adults pull up earth energy. And if children do this exercise, it will help them to go to sleep at night. So you can have your child do this at night, but you literally stomp to get those secondary chakras barefoot, okay, or socks maybe, but no shoes. You stomp and you repeat, I'm here, I'm staying, and I deserve to be here. And you do it for like 5 to 10 minutes. You could do it around your house. You could do it outside in the morning in the fresh lawn, because dew is so excellent for the human body. A child doesn't have to say the phrase. If you want to get your children to go to bed at night and they won't go to bed, just have them stomp around the house. They can say the phrase if they want to, but it's not necessary. And when people get grounded, especially children, it helps them to fall asleep at night.
Thank you. Marie, you are a positive person. I can see that. I can feel it. And many of our speakers who come on to this summit talk about great possibility and abundance and positivity. And this session is called What If? So it's all about positivity and possibility. But our world seems in shambles right now. And here in the United States, it can be difficult, whether a person is political or not. It seems to hit us on every level right now, how people are struggling and suffering. How do you see the world? How do you see our future as a healer and a medium?
That's another wonderful question. And just so that everybody knows who's watching the summit, people who are really positive, they still have things in their life that affect them. They still have hardships and challenges and difficulties, but many of them have trained themselves how to be on a positive vibration, because we know that if we can do that, the chances of us having a positive outcome is very high. And we also know that letting go is hugely important. One of the things that maybe your audience will find interesting is that most everyone who's listening to your beautiful summit is an old soul. And old souls get a little confused about the human realm. Old souls are very compassionate, highly empathetic people. They care about the world. They get very upset when there's a lack of justice or when things are unfair. This human world was not created to be a place of fairness. It was created to be a place of contrast. So there are hundreds of thousands of time-space realities that exist throughout the universes, and this one actually was created to be the way it is. At some point, as we grow in our consciousness, it will change where it looks more like heaven, but souls choose to come here to have contrast so they can ask themselves, do I want that or do I want this over here? So it's a perfect time-space reality that constantly gives us information that helps us to choose. So that's number one, that everything that's happening here on Earth is actually meant to happen, that there's nothing wrong. And old souls need to learn to let go. Old souls do not need to learn more compassion. They really need to stop trying to become more compassionate. They're already incredibly compassionate towards others. If they want to integrate compassion in their life, I highly recommend that they integrate self-compassion, because old souls tend to be hard on themselves, And I would also ask them to work on letting go. And the political arena in the United States right now is the perfect opportunity to learn to let go and get out of the way. And that doesn't mean you don't volunteer or send resources to different organizations that you believe are going to have the American public's best interest. Of course, you can do those things, but please do it in a happy, joyful vibration. It will be 1,000 times more effective. Positive energy is more powerful than negative energy. So that's my answer for that question.
Thank you, Marie. How can people stay connected to you?
Well, you can go to energyintuitive.com. That's my website. And you can also listen to my radio show. You can listen to it live through the website Thursday mornings at 9 a.m. There are also hundreds of shows that are podcasted on my website. Or you can go to 11:50 a.m. if you happen to live in the Seattle area, because it's on radio stations. Terrestrial radio is what they call that. And then it's also streamed.
Wonderful. Thank you. And I think you have an event coming up, if you'd like to mention that. And then right here at the end of this show, is there anything you want to leave the viewers with, a final thought today?
Absolutely. So I have an event in the fall. It is September 24th through the 30th, and I'm doing a retreat on the Greek island of Syros. And it's called Let Go and Expand, which is kind of interesting since we talked about letting go. So I hope you can join me. You can go to my website and find out more information about it. This will be my second international retreat, and I'm super excited about it. And my final words would be that to remember that you are magnificent. You are precious. You are an amazing being of light, and you deserve all the happiness that you will possibly allow yourself to experience. And I wish you all the joy in the world.
Thank you, Marie. Wonderful show today. We wish you joy as well. And thank you to all of our viewers. We will see you again soon.
Thank you for joining us for the Energy Medicine and Healing Summit, brought to you by the Shift Network. You can add every teaching and transcript to your personal library by visiting energymedicinesummit.com/upgrade. To learn more about awakening to your full potential and together co-creating a world that works for all, visit theshiftnetwork.com. Thank you again for joining us and for sharing this life-changing information with your friends and family.